denominator. I don't know if you guys knew this when you guys were first learning about radicals, but when you guys write fractions, you're actually not allowed to have radicals in the denominator of a fraction. It's not allowed. So we do something called rationalizing the denominator, which will move the radical from the denominator to the numerator, but it will keep the fraction equivalent. It'll look a little bit different, but it'll have the same value. So what you guys are going to do is you're going to multiply this fraction. You guys can write this down on the back of the first page if you want, with some extra space if you have any, on the back of the assignment guide. So we're going to start with 4 divided by square root of 2. We're not allowed to have the square root of 2 there. So what you guys are going to do is you're going to multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 2. So whatever the denominator is that you're trying to move, whatever that radical is, you're going to multiply the top and the bottom. Okay? So if I multiply across the top, what would that be? What is 4 times square root of 2? Don't think too hard. 4 radical 2. I made these up so you can just use any blank paper that you have, like on the back of the assignment guide is fine. So when you multiply a number and a radical, they kind of just mush together. Then, what would the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 be? Square root of 4. When you multiply radicals, you just multiply the inside. And so what is the square root of 4? 2. So your answer would be 4 square root of 2 over 2. And then if you can cancel anything that's outside of the radical, you would. So there's anything that I could simplify in terms of a fraction? If I can divide these two numbers, anything that's inside the radical can't be changed anymore. But if you can simplify both of those, then you can. So the process of eliminating the denominator, the radical in the denominator, gets you something that looks totally different. But this number, if you were to plug into your calculator, this number is exactly the same as that number. Okay, it's just written properly. Okay? Now this whole process, that's a lot of math. That's a lot to do. So I have a shortcut for you. You guys like shortcuts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a shortcut for you. So in this one, we'll apply the shortcut. Instead of doing all this work, we're going to do the work in our head and kind of just jump forward. The shortcut is that you just take this, you're going to pick it up and put it down in the numerator. So pick that up and put it down. So I have 6, and then I write square root of 3. So you're taking the radical, you're picking it up, and you're putting it down in the numerator. And then in the denominator, you're just going to erase the radical and leave the 3 behind. That's the shortcut. The shortcut is to pick this up and put it down, the entire term, put it in the numerator, and then erase the radical symbol. So that's how I go from here to here. Does everybody see how I did that? Okay. Then all you have to do is from this step on, if you can cancel anything, you guys would do that. So I can cancel the 6 over 3. That gives me 2 root 3. So that process I showed you, you can make it half as long by using the shortcut. Okay? So then try, what would this be if I use the shortcut? 20 radical 3 over 3. Now, can I cancel the 20 and the 3? No, so then you would leave it like this. Okay? That's called rationalizing the denominator, and we will be using that in this lesson. Is everybody clear with that? Okay. Now we can go on to the actual notes here. So we have 2 different types of special right triangles. That's what we call them, special right triangles. We have our 45, 45, 90, and our 30, 60, 90. Why do you think they were called that? Because it's the angle measures. So a 45, 45, 90 has 2 45-degree angles in the right angle, obviously. And then the 30, 60, 90 has a 30 and 60-degree angle, and then the right angle, obviously. Okay? So we have 2 different, unfortunately, this is memorization. You have to memorize these. So in a 45, 45, 90 triangle, you guys need to remember this rule. The 2 legs, which I've labeled with L, are going to be the same value. So the 2 legs are the same value. And then the hypotenuse is whatever the leg is times the square root of 2. So for example, if this leg is 3, what would this leg be? 3. And the hypotenuse would be 3 over 2. You have to memorize that. Okay? You have to memorize that the 2 legs are the same and the hypotenuse is whatever the leg is with the extra square root of 2 attached to it. Okay? You do have to memorize that. That one's a little bit easier to memorize. The 30, 60, 90 triangle is different, so it is a little bit more tricky to memorize. The shortest side, we're going to refer to that as L. Now, how do you know which one is the shortest side? Think back to...
Just by looking at it.
It's across from the smallest angle. So the shortest side is going to be across from the 30-degree angle. We call that L, okay? So this is what we find first. The shortest leg is L. The medium leg across from the 60-degree angle is L times the square root of 3. So whatever this is, you're going to multiply that times the square root of 3. The hypotenuse is 2 times L. Okay, so for example, if I say that this is 4, what would this be? 4 root 3, you literally just plug 4 in for L, and you attach the square root of 3 to it. And then what would the hypotenuse be? 8. 4 times 2, 8. Okay? Sorry, what is that? Computer's on. There we go. Sorry about that, I don't know what was happening. Okay, going. Alright, so that's just an example. You do have to memorize that, unfortunately. This one's a little bit harder to memorize. One thing that I've done to help me, see how this is a 3 and that's a 2? I have 1, 2, 3. You see that I have 1L and then 2L, and then I know it's not 3L, but it has a 3 in it. That's how when I was younger, that's how I memorized it. 1, 2, 3. I knew that each side had to have one of those. And then this one I remembered that because I had 2 congruent sides, I had a 2 inside of the square root. You guys can come up with your own little system to help you memorize, but that's what I did. Okay? And then again, a quick little review on rationalizing. If we get into the solving process where we have a radical in the denominator, we would just do that really quick to fix it. Okay? So, let's just jump right in. So the way that you're going to use this is you need to first identify whether the triangle is 45, 45, 90 or 30, 60, 90. So look at the first example. Which one is it? So up in the corner somewhere, you're going to write down which triangle it is, so you can access which rule that you have memorized to use. So this is what I recommend, and there are other ways of doing this, but this is what I recommend. I want you guys to write an equal next to each one of the labels. And then you guys are going to write in what the rule is. So remember we had L, L, and L root 2, right? So what label goes here from the rule? L. L.
root 2.
L root 2. This is what I do to really keep my information organized. So I label each of these terms. Now, what you want to look for is the number. See how these are both variables and this is the number? You're going to look for that one and you're going to circle it. Alright, so what I know from this triangle is that L is 6. Do you see anywhere else where we're going to use L to help us solve?
Yeah.
Y. Right? So if L is 6 and Y is L, then what's Y? 6. So that gives me my first one. And then I can see that X is L times the square root of 2. Well, do I know what L is? 6. So then what would X be? Plug it in. 6 times the square root of 2. This that I've circled, and I do want you to circle it so it stands out. Once you know what L is your key to unlocking all the rest of the answers. When you have L, you just plug it into all the positions of the rule and you get all the information in. So that's our first one. Questions about that? Great, let's try the next one. What kind of triangle is this one? Another 45, 45, 90. I'm going to write equal signs next to each of the labels, and I'm going to use the rule to label them. Okay? So what would Y be in terms of the rule? No, the rule. L, the 3 root 2 would be L, and the X would be L root 2. The first thing I want you to do is just write in the rule. Don't worry about solving, just write where the L's and the L root 2, where they go, put them in the picture. Then what do you want to do? We're going to circle something. Wherever the number is, you're going to circle that. That little equation tells you what L is, and L is the key to unlocking the answer. So if I know that L is 3 square root 2, and I know that Y is L, what's Y? 3 square root 2. Delete. Okay? So Y was really easy. You just plug it in, you get your L plugged in, and you're good to go. Now, how do I find X? Do I know what L is? Yes, I do. So now I would plug that in. Now this is going to be a little bit different. When I plug it in, it's going to look like this. 3 square root of 2 times the square root of 2. Because I'm plugging L in right here. So when you plug L in, you're going to have 3 square root of 2 and then the other square root of 2, which is still part of the rule. Okay? When you have something like this, you may have to do a little extra work to the side in order to get your final answer. Okay? So when I'm here, I don't want to leave it like this. This is really messy. I need to multiply it together and simplify it. So if I multiply the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, what does that give me? Square root of 4, right? So this is really 3 times the square root of 4. But what's the square root of 4? 2. So it's really 3 times 2, which is 6. So your final answer would be 6. You start by plugging in L, because once you know L, you know what to do with it. You just plug it in, write it out, literally what the rule would say, and then work it out using some math. Algebra. And you get 6 as your final answer. Okay? Questions on that one? Alright. Next up, what kind of triangle is this one?
31 to 61 to 90.
They're not minus. They're dashes.
Oh.
30, 69. They're not subtract. Alright, now this is a rule that's a little bit more complicated. You guys always want to start with the shortest side, which is across from the 30-degree angle. If this is the 60, then this is the 30. So I'm going to start up here. What's the label for the shortest side? L. Okay, 3 is across from the 60. That's the medium side. What's our label for that?
L
L root 3. And then the hypotenuse, which is x in the scenario, what's the label for the hypotenuse? 2L. Let me write that again. Alright, does everybody have the rule written in? Alright, which one is the one I'm going to circle? This one. Okay. Now, what's unfortunate about this scenario is that I need to know what L is, and it would be easier if I knew what L was from the shorter side, but I don't have that. So you guys have to do a little bit of extra work to solve for L, because you need to know L first. Like it says in the note up here, you need to find L first. So in order to do that, I'm going to solve this equation for L. How would I solve for L? I'll give you a different example. If I have 3 equals 2x, how would I solve for x? You divide by 2, right? You divide by 2. So, take that same idea and apply it here. If I have 3 equals L, which is our variable, times the square root of 3, what would I do to solve for L? What would I do? Say again? Nope. Don't overthink it, guys. Divide by the square root of 3. I heard 3. I didn't get the square root of 3. But if you said that.
Yeah.
Okay, so in order to get L by itself, you guys need to divide by the square root of 3. So I get L equals 3 divided by the square root of 3. Now, do you guys remember how we started by talking about the rationalization? This is where it comes in handy. When I divided by the square root of 3, we got this scenario. You're not allowed to have radicals in the denominator. So this is where you guys would use rationalization. So you can tell me, using that shortcut, and we talked about the shortcut rather than the long way, how would I rewrite this? Okay? Good. Great. Alright, so whenever you have that process where you divide by the square root of something and you have that in the denominator, really quickly write it using that shortcut we talked about. Can I simplify that? Can I cancel this 3 and that 3? Yes. So that just leaves me with square root of 3. So now we have that the L, the value of L is square root of 3. Awesome. Now, which variable can we find using that? Which value in here is L? Y. So y is equal to L, and we found that was square root of 3, so y is equal to the square root of 3. That was the whole point of finding L, so we could plug it in order to find y. Now, what about x? Excuse me, what? 2 root 3, exactly. Once you guys know L, again, that's the key to unlocking all the rest of the questions. Once you know L, you just plug it in. 2 times L would be 2 times square root of 3, so you just write it like that. Okay. There should be no decimals or anything like that in this lesson. This is the hardest of the question. So if you can handle that, you'll be fine. Alright, any questions on the first row? Alright. Yep. Alright, what kind of triangle is this next one?
30, 60, 90.
Awesome. 30, 60, 90. Alright, we're going to label all the sides using the rule. So I'm going to put equal signs. Alright, what would the y be? The hypotenuse. Hypotenuse? Adrian, your phone should be put up and you should be following along with the notes, please. 2L.
10.
Right? So what? We're just going to write in the rule first and then we'll apply the notes, okay? So the hypotenuse is 2L. What about x? The longest side across from 60.
L root 3.
L root 3. And then 5, the shortest side.
L.
L. Okay. Which one am I going to circle that's going to help me answer the rest of the question?
L root 3. Right?
Nope. You circle the one that has the number. The number label. Alright, so I know L is 5, so what would y be? It would be 10, because you're going to do 2 times L, and since we said L was 5, 2 times 5, that's 10. What would x be?
X, 5,
5 root 3. Because all you need to do is plug in whatever L is, which we said was 5. So you just plug in 5 root 3. Done. Got it? Cool. Alright, now this one's tricky. Which kind of triangle is this one?
45, 45, 90.
How do you know that from?
Because the same x and y are the same length and the angle 90.
Yep. So even though this doesn't have the angles presented with the 45s, because the sides are equal, that should remind you, oh, the one with the equal sides, that's the 45, 45, 90. So I'm going to use that rule to help me solve. Okay, how would I label the x and the y using the rule?
L.
L
L.
and L, and then what's the rule for the hypotenuse?
L.
L root
2.
And then I'm going to circle that one. Sorry, my writing's a little squished. Alright, so this is the one where I'm going to use to solve. Now remember, I want to solve for L. Right now it says L root 2 equals, and I want to say L equals. So how do I solve this for L? Yes, but algebraically, how would you do that? If I have L root 2 equals 12 root 2, and I'm trying to solve for L, what algebraic step? Yeah, you divide by root 2. So that cancels, leaving me with L, and then what happens over here? Those root 2's also cancel, so you have L equals 12. Alright, so it actually works out. It looked nasty at the beginning, but once you do the algebra, it actually becomes more simple. So if L is 12, what's the value of x? 12. This is the same thing as L. And then what's the value of y? 12. Exactly. So again, some of these questions at different points in the question, you may have to do a little bit of extra algebra. But once you find L, that's the door opening to the rest of the question. Alright, what kind of triangle is the next one?
30, 60.
Okay. What's the rule label for the 4 root 2? 2L. What about for the y? L. And for the x? L root 3. Remember 1, 2, 3? You have 1L, 2L, and then L root 3. Okay. Which one of these do I want to circle?
2L.
This one right here. I'm going to use that to solve for L. How do I solve for L? How? Divide by 2, right? To get L by itself, you divide by 2. So what would that be? What would 4 root 2 divided by 2 be?
2 root 2.
Yes, 2 root 2. 2 root 2. So now that I know L, all I have to do is now plug that in where it goes. So if L is 2 root 2, what's y? 2 root 2. Because L is the same thing as L. So once you know y is the same thing as L. So once you know what that is, you can find y. What about x? Yeah, this one's going to require a little bit of more algebra. I'm going to plug in L right here, which is 2 root 2, but then I'm going to also multiply that times root 3, because that's part of the rule. You guys see that? Part of the rule. So then what would it actually be when I multiply them all together? 2 root 6. Now can I simplify 2 root 6 at all? Then that's it. If you can't cancel anything, you can't simplify anything, then you just leave it as is after that. Okay? Alright, I'm going to leave you guys to try to do the last row by yourselves. Okay? So see, you can reference the top if you don't have the rules memorized quite yet. I know it's only been a couple minutes. But go ahead and do your best on the bottom row, and then I'll put the answers up for you to check what you have, and then I'll take any questions before we move on to the next section. Alright, so you guys remember, when you have an equation like this where it doesn't just say L equals and there's a little bit of algebra you have to do first, or you're going to be dividing. I know you guys aren't used to dividing by square roots usually, but it's the same algebra you guys would do if this was 6 equals 2L. Okay? So you guys need to divide by the square root of 2. So that cancels out this square root of 2 and moves it over here. So then you get 6 divided by the square root of 2. Why is it doing this? There. You would get this. So when you divide by the square root of 2, it becomes this. And that takes us back like what we did in the question up here. You're not allowed to have a square root in the denominator. So you have to do that exercise that we did before we started the notes, where you move the square root up and replace the denominator with the same number but without the radical. And then you can simplify this. The 6 and the 2 cancel each other, leaving you with 3 root 2. So L is equal to 3 root 2, and both x and y, according to the rule, were equal to L, so that means x and y are equal to 3 root 2. Okay? So again, this is, I know this one's, it's the hardest. It's like tier 3 of different levels of questions with this concept. You guys do need to recognize that you have to sometimes divide by radicals, and when you do that, you then have to do this whole process before you can use L. Okay? Any other questions from this page? Okay, so for the last one, what kind of triangle is it?
45.
The 45, 45, 90? So what would the rule be for, I don't remember who's doing this, for the x and the y? X is
Equal to
L and y is equal to L, and the 5 root 2 is equal to L root 2. This is the equation you circle. Remember, you circle the one with the numerical label. So if I have L root 2 equals 5 root 2 and I'm trying to solve for L, what would I do? How would I get L by itself? Divide the square root of 2. And so what that does is it cancels out here and here, leaving you with just L equals 5. Right? Whenever you have something attached to L with multiplication, you just divide it away. And it cancels. So L would be equal to 5. Any other questions? Jacob. I asked you before and you lied to me. You know where it goes, which is not there. Alright, any other questions? Alright, go ahead and turn the page. Practice makes perfect, so we're going to keep doing that. So, which kind of triangle is the one on the top left over here?
30, 60.
30, 60, 90. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and put the labels into the picture, and then we're going to solve.
X equals 3.
Nope. I know we turned the page so you guys can't see the rules anymore, but see if you can remember them. What's the label for the side across from 60?
2L.
Across from 60.
2L.
No.
What?
L radical 3.
Yeah, that's how.
The side across from the 60 is L root 3. What about the Y?
2L.
No. Y is the shortest side.
Oh, you said
L.
that.
And then the 4, 2L. Alright, which one of these do I circle? This equation right here. That's the one you circle. Okay? So then what is the value of L? 2, right? So if you have 2L equals 4 and you're solving for L, you would divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I know that L is equal to 2. I'm going to write that down so you can use it. So if L is 2, which variable do I know?
Y.
Okay. So Y is equal to
2.
2. And then X would be equal to 2 root 3. You just plug the 2 in right there. 2 root 3.
Well, this triangle is the same
Hmm?
side. The thing
Radical?
over 3?
Radical. Radical 3. Okay, which one type of triangle is in the middle?
45.
Okay. the rule for x? L, the rule for 12 root 6, and the rule for y. Right. Yeah, gotta have those memorized so you can write them in. Which one of these will I circle?
12 radical 6.
Awesome. So this one tells me L is equal to this. Awesome. Once you know L, you have everything that you need to answer the rest of the question. So what would the value of x be? It would be the same, right? Because L is the value of x. What about for y?
It would be radical 6 radical 12.
Nope. What would I do to find y? What's the rule for y? It's L root 2. We said that L was this,
Oh.
right?
So it'd be
12 root 6 times root 2.
so it'd be 12
Plug it in.
12.
Okay, so it'd be 12 root 12. Now, in this scenario, you guys need to be careful. Can I simplify the square root of 12? Yes. So if you can simplify it, you better. Otherwise, you're not done. So when I simplify this, 4 and 3, right? So when I take the square root of 4, what comes out?
2.
All right, if there's already a number out there, what do? You multiply them. You don't add, you multiply. So if you already have a 12 on the outside and you're bringing another 2 to join it, it becomes 24, and then the 3 stays on. 4 times 3. Sure. So to simplify the radical, once you get to 12 root 12, you need to simplify radical the square root of 12. You split 12 into two numbers where one of them is a perfect square. And so 4 times 3 is 12, so I choose this factorization. You take the square root of 4, which is 2, correct? Whatever the square root of the perfect square is, that comes outside of the radical to join anything that's already there. So because there was already a 12 there, I had to multiply the 2 times the 12. And then the other number just stays. Okay? Alright, what about the next one? 30, 60, 90. Alright, what's the rule for the side labeled with 6? Without looking.
Labeled with 6, it's 2. No. L route 3.
Route 3. L root 3. Okay. What about the side labeled Y? 2L. And the side labeled X?
L.
L. Alright, which one of these am I going to circle?
6.
Alright. I need to know what L is. How do I solve for L? Divide by the square root of 3. I need to get rid of the square root of 3, and I do that by dividing. So L is equal to 6 divided by the square root of 3. Am I allowed to write it like that? So what do I do?
L or 6 route 3 over 3.
Okay. 2 root 3. Sorry, it's getting so close to the edge. Because the 6 on top and the 3 on the bottom cancel to become a 2. So L is equal to 2 root 3.
X equals 2. Yeah.
Okay? So X is equal to 2 root 3 because X is L. And then what about Y?
We have to do 2.
It's 2 times 2 root 3. So you just multiply those two and you get 4 root 3. You never try to multiply something outside of a radical with something inside of a radical. Okay? So whatever's inside the radical is separate from everything that's outside. Everybody okay with that one? Alright, here you guys go again. Your turn. Do this row right here all by yourself. See if you can figure it out. Alright, these are the answers that you guys should have for this row. Well, just switch out. If you know what L is, just switch it out. Alright, so anybody have any questions on that set? Yes? The last one. Alright, who can help me answer the last one?
Wait, what do we need to do? Oh, okay.
We have a question on this one.
So, 4 square root of 3 equals
Guys, shh.
L root 3. Then Y equals 2L. X equals L. So then you circle 4 root 3
Okay?
and you divide root 3 divided by root 3
Okay.
and then it cancels out.
Anytime you guys have anything with the L, you want to divide that away. So I'm dividing by the square root of 3, it cancels out. You have to do it to both sides, so the square root of 3 on that side also cancels, so you get L equals 4. So once you have L, you then plug it in, and then you're good to go using that for the other answers. Okay? Yes? Okay. Cool, awesome sauce. Alright, we're almost done. We're in the last stretch here.
Wait, can we go a little bit up?
We just don't do that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
It would be very wise to start working on the spiral review with them. So I know a lot of you guys haven't even started on the spiral and it's due next week.
See, I actually
How did I know?
I already finished it.
Alright.
I already finished
Anyways,
it.
we'll talk about that afterwards.
I just didn't do question 7
We'll
because
talk about that
I
afterwards.
understand it.
Stay with me, guys. Alright. Which one would this be?
30, 60, 90.
Fantastic. Alright, I want the rule for the 10 root 3, please. 2L. I would like the rule for the y, please. And for x? Alright, which one will I circle? Okay, I'm going to use this to help me solve for L. How do I solve for L? Divide by 2. Whatever's with the L that shouldn't be there, you divide it away. So I divide by 2. So what's the value of L then? 5 root 3. 5 root 3. Okay, so now that I know L, remember L is your key to unlock the rest of it. So what would the value of x be? It's just 5 root 3, because L is the same thing as just L. Sorry, x is the same thing as just L. And then what about y? No.
Or
5 root 3 times root 3, which is 5 root 9, which is 5 times 3, 15. Yes? So x is going to be 5 root 3 and y is 15. Alright, what about the next one? Now, these next pictures are going to be a little more convoluted, so you guys will be expected to use any of these rules in slightly more complicated pictures. So you guys just have to break down the picture into separate parts that you can work with. So if I'm looking at this, you guys see how there are 2 different triangles? Which triangle has more information that I can actually use to help me solve? Either highlight the triangle I'm going to use or redraw it off to the side. You guys pick which one you would prefer. For this triangle, is it 30, 60, 90 or 45, 45, 90? Okay, what's the rule for the 5? 2L, the rule for the x, and the rule for the y. Alright, which one am I going to circle? 2L. Alright, what would the value of L be? 10. You have to divide by the 2.
Oh.
So you would get 5 divided by 2. You must write it as a fraction.
Ooh.
You must. You may not write it as a decimal. Whenever you guys are working within this context and you guys are giving me answers with radicals and things like that, it needs to be a fraction. So please leave it as 5 over 2. Alright, so I know what L is, so then what's the value of x? 5 over 2. And then the value of y?
5 over 2 root 3.
Yes. However, you're going to write it like this. It is technically 5 over 2 times the square root of 3, but the square root of 3 is going to multiply with the numerator, so just write the 5 root 3 on the top and the 2 on the bottom. Okay? So that's, I know that one's a little bit weird with fraction, but that's, you gotta know how to work with all of it. Alright, which triangle would I want to work in for this picture? Top one. And which triangle is that? Awesome. No, you pick one and you figure out how to work through it. Alright, what's the rule for 8? X and Y? Over 2. Okay, so which one would I circle? 8. Okay. Okay, so I know what L is up front. I don't have to do any extra solving. L is 8. So X is 8, and Y is 8 root 2. Great, last row. That was it. All right. Alright, this is an interesting question. So there are two different right triangles. So you guys see the two different right triangles? I have this one right here, and then I have the whole triangle. Okay? In order to analyze this, I have to figure out which one of these two right triangles would be more helpful as I'm working. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 45-degree angle right here. Isn't that true? It would also be 45? Okay. Alright, if these two are both 45, what's the relationship between y and 12? They're the same, right? Because in a 45, 45, 90, this is L and this is L, correct? So what's the value of y? Cool. Now, so that was using the big triangle. So I'm going to use both of the triangles in different contexts. So use the big triangle to find y. Now I'm going to use the small triangle to find x, right? What would the rule be for x? L, and the rule for 12 in the small triangle? L root 2. You guys see how 12 serves two different purposes? For the bigger triangle, it's L, but for the smaller triangle here, it's L root 2. You guys see that? It kind of serves two different purposes. So for the smaller triangle, I'm going to work with this. I'm going to circle that one, because that's what I'm going to use to solve for L. So again, how would I solve for L? Root 2. Divide by the square root of 2. So I would have L equals 12 root 2 if I'm going to divide, which is not written correctly. How would I fix that? Okay? 6 root 2. Okay, so we know that L, in this triangle that I've highlighted blue, we know that L is now 6 root 2. So then what would X be? 6 root 2. So be prepared to see two different triangles kind of working together, where a number, like 12, actually serves two different purposes depending on which triangle you're working in. So be prepared for something like that. Great. This one right here, I have two different, I have a 45, 45, 90 on top and a 30, 60 on bottom. And I'm going to have to use one triangle to find information in this triangle in order to solve for x. You guys see how this triangle doesn't have any sides? So I have to use this triangle to find out this side. Do you see that? Okay. So my goal is to find this side right here. So what do you guys think? What's the rule for y? This one would be L root 3, because it's across from the 60. What about the 12? 2L. And then, I know this doesn't have a variable, but what would the rule be for that one? L. Okay, so if I know that 2L is 12, L would be 6. So that means this side right here is 6. Now, that wasn't like part of the question or anything, but I will need that in a second. So if L is 6, then what's y? 6 root 3. So I use the bottom triangle to find y. Now I'm going to switch to the upper triangle to solve for x, and so I use the 6 that I previously found to help me solve for x. So if this is L, what's the rule for x? Also L. So x would be 6. So again, we had one triangle helping out with the other one. Yes? I mean, technically you could do that. I mean, it's the same process. Again, we knew that they were both L. So you can either solve for that first and plug it in, or you could switch it down. Either way. All right, our last one. Here we go. This is a rectangular shape. Which triangle would I want to use? Bottom. What kind of triangle is that? All right. Rule for y. 2L. Rule for x. L root 3. And then the side across from 30, the shortest side is L. Which one am I going to circle? L equals 10, right? So if L is 10, then what's the value of y? 20. And if L is 10, what would the value of X be? Okay? So I want you guys to take a really quick second of self-reflection. So I want you guys to figure out what's going on with you in terms of this lesson. If you fully understand this and you're good to go, you can put a little check mark here. If you're not quite sure about what's going on in this lesson, I want you to put a check mark here and then commit to something. The math learning center. So if you're a little bit so confused, I want you to commit to doing something to address that confusion so you guys are not stuck before an assessment comes up and then you can't move forward.